young workers coming in. So that's one issue. Okay. Oh, yeah. I doubt you'll be able to get all this in. Sorry. Here. Okay, pause it there if you need to. Okay, so demographic transition. It's a model that explains why population growth has slowed in industrialized nations. Okay, so reasons are because in industrialized nations there's a reduced economic need for children, partly due to laws and against child labor, and also just because there's not as much agriculture, that sort of thing. So they don't need kids to work. There's also education for women, about reproduction, also greater education in general, which leads them to get better jobs and work more, therefore not have time to have kids, or as many kids. And empowerment for women, that goes along with being able to work, being able to say, no, I don't want another kid, that sort of thing. Okay. And this decreased the number of, empowerment and education both decreased the number of unwanted pregnancies. Okay. And it also, one idea behind this is that people in, wealthier, industrialized nations invest in quality of life rather than the number of children, because they don't need to. Because children, there's a lower death rate among infants. And this was proposed by Notstein in the 40s and 50s, and it has been disputed. People have argued that it can't happen in some developing nations because there are differences, and there are cultural differences. But it has happened in the U.S., Canada, Japan, and some other developed nations. So let me just summarize the basic model of this. In the pre-industrial stage, that's when there's a high death rate and a high birth rate. Okay, and then in the transitional stage, there is, because industry increases, and technology, therefore, the death rate declines, but the birth rate, is still high. Then in the industrial stage, so women, become more empowered, they work more, children become less valuable economically, and people start to become aware that, they have options in terms of birth control. And so birth rates fall. And then in the post-industrial stage, birth rates and death rates remain stable, keeping the population stable. Okay, so that is demographic transition. Okay, pause there. Okay, alright, so the last thing we're going to talk about is HIV/AIDS. About 38 million people are infected worldwide. 25 million people out of that live in sub-Saharan Africa. That's pretty staggering. Okay. And epidemics like HIV/AIDS that affect young and productive members of society can influence population dynamics and therefore have social and political ramifications. If a large amount of your young population is gone, then that can later maybe drive down your population. It can reduce your economic power because you don't have the workforce, and it also strains your government resources. So demographic fatigue is when governments face challenges related to population growth, such as educating lots of children that are born and finding jobs for all these people. Their resources get stretched thin, and then when something like HIV/AIDS comes along, that's just one more thing that's continuing to stretch a country's resources thin, and then people lose faith in the government, and it's just sort of a downward spiral from there. So not good. Demographic fatigue is not a good thing. Okay, so here you go. Alright, so as I said, I'm using this book, and basically at the end of every chapter they have a little summary thing. That's basically where I got most of this stuff on these index cards. I just like to be able to hear it so I can listen to it while I'm doing something more enjoyable than reading a textbook. But I would encourage you to make sure you look through the chapter at least before you take any test, because there are some vocabulary words and stuff that I didn't cover. And if you have any questions, the text might clarify it for you. But anyways, thanks for watching.